please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Top story of the day: Europe's new privacy law comes into effect from today, known as the General Data Protection Rule or the GDPR. The European Union's new data protection law makes it mandatory for all companies that process data of EU citizens to get their explicit consent. Now, any violation will attract a hefty penalty. Remember, the GDPR comes against the backdrop of the Facebook data breach controversy. Let's bring in Kevin Lee, who has been doing the assessment and analysis with us on the law and also, of course, on the impact that this would have on India. Kevin, you know, one seeing this particular law would say that this only applies to Europe citizens. How does this affect us?
Well, the GDPR bill was passed 2 years ago. It comes into effect starting today. All companies that process or handle the data of European citizens, no matter where those companies are geographically located, will have to comply with the GDPR regulation. Now, what does GDPR mean for citizens? Well, citizens can ask any company how much of their data the company is collecting, what the company is using this data for, how many third parties have access to their data from the company, and if citizens are not happy with the amount of data that a company has on them, they can ask these companies to even delete their personal data from their servers. Now, what are the company obligations? Well, companies have to ask for explicit consent from users to use their data for any purpose. Those long, multiple-page agreements that we don't really read, we just skim through them and click on I agree to the terms and conditions, that is not going to cut it anymore. Companies are going to have to ask in a more simplified way if they are to use our data for anything else. Also, companies will need to have a dedicated data protection officer to ensure compliance with all the norms of GDPR. And the reason this is important is because the penalties have gone up significantly. The maximum penalty for companies who violate these norms has been raised to 20 million euros or 4% of their global turnover, whichever is higher. Also, regulators across all European countries will be able to work together for any complaint regarding GDPR, no matter which country that complaint was initially filed in. In an India context, this has two impacts. One is on Indian companies who handle the data of European citizens, because these Indian companies will have to comply with GDPR norms. And secondly, global social media giants like a Facebook or a Google or a Twitter or even e-commerce services like Amazon, because they have to change their norms and tweak them according to GDPR for their European customers, the hope is that they will do this for Indian customers as well. And hence, Indian customers of these services will also be protected under the new GDPR norms. So a red letter day for data protection, hopefully for Indian customers as well.
Okay, red letter day indeed. And, you know, of course, any kind of protection is important, but we'll need to see the fine print of this. We will be taking this discussion forward on India Business Hour. But for now, let's talk about the day's trading action. Markets continue to tread higher for the second consecutive day, courtesy the banking stocks. The Nifty reclaimed the 10,600 mark, led by a 91-point gain. The Sensex also crossed the 35,000 mark, but cooled off in the last hour. Broader markets outperformed today, with banks rallying almost 1%, while mid-caps rallied 2% after a series of weak sessions over the last few days. Both Nifty and the Sensex ended flat for the week among the broader markets, while Bank Nifty ended the week in the green, up 1.5%. Mid-cap index, meanwhile, was 0.5% down. Meanwhile, there is a huge bubble in the global markets, fears renowned economist from China, Andy Shi. Speaking to Shireen Bhan on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg Economic Summit, Andy Shi also added that he does not expect market to crash, but they will remain range-bound. He also dismissed fears of a trade war between United States and China. On India, Andy Shi called on the government to pump more money into infrastructure and called the Modi government's growth targets too ambitious.
I don't believe that a trade war will happen soon, because Chinese products are not exact Chinese products. They are American products and branded by American companies. So the United States hasn't figured out what to do yet. Okay. But still, there is an issue that the U.S.-China trade imbalance is expanding. Yes. And I think that the frustration will build. I think that in a couple of years' time, maybe something more serious will happen. But so far, it's mostly noise.
What do you see happening in the short term?
Well, I think short term is really the market risk premium is rising. Now the financial markets have been very buoyant for many years.
You believe that valuations have shot far
it's
ahead
100%
of fundamentals.
above historical average. So there is a big bubble. There is a big internet bubble. I don't know what from economic data, we don't see the contribution from those companies to the global economy, right? But they're getting so much attention, valuation is just extraordinary. There is a big bubble in the financial markets. So the risk premium is rising, so there's a threat there.
Let me turn our attention to India now, and you've been a long-time tracker of India. In fact, I remember reading, you said that 17 years ago the Indian government had invited you, asking you for advice on what it should do, and your advice was invest, invest, invest. Right. Today we're almost at the 4-year anniversary of the Modi government. How would you rate India?
Well, infrastructure investment has picked up some. I think that India is making progress. But the pickup is insufficient to meet the ambition that the Modi government has. The Modi government wants India to have a 10% growth rate, maybe, and a double income like in 7 or 8 years and so.
You believe that that's not a realistic aspiration or target?
I think you look at what China did after 1998. The ramp up in infrastructure was much quicker. You look at the highway, highway investment started in 1998. They started in like 1,500 kilometers per year, then built up very quickly to like 6,000 and 10,000 per year. That kind of scale is what India needs if you want the economy to become to have a 10% growth rate.
And we will get you more from that summit, but let's move on. Even as North India continues to sizzle with temperature crossing 45 degrees Celsius in some places, independent and captive power producers are complaining of coal shortage. Now, independent power producers allege that Coal India is prioritizing supply of coal to public sector units. Anshu Sharma joins in now. Anshu, what exactly are the allegations and what is being done to address them?
That's right. In the month of May this year, peak power demand has reached 170 gigawatt compared to 158 gigawatt in the last year. And we have seen that as of May 21st, coal supply have reached critical and supercritical levels for 22 plants, where 16 plants are at supercritical level and 6 plants are at critical levels with coal supplies. Interestingly, independent power producers or the private sector, which constitutes over 70,000 megawatt, has said that their coal supply is reduced, and Coal India is prioritizing the PSU power plants like NTPC and others who have a higher plant load factor, which is 72%, and private players have plant load factor of only about 52%. Meanwhile, captive power producers or the power producers which use power for steel, aluminium, cement and other sectors claim that all the coal supply is being diverted to the power sector alone, IPPs, and not to the captive power producers. They claim that their coal supply was reduced in FY17 to 6.2% and it was flat in FY18, though the government has replied to CNBC TV18's query and has said that there has been an increase of 26% in terms of coal supply to CPPs. It has also said that coal supply rakes have increased in the month of March at 258 rakes per day compared to 247 rakes per day in the month of January. So there is a coal crunch, but the government stands by that they are looking at enhancing supplies. Back to you.
Okay, so enhancing supply, of course, is one way to look at it, and that is very critical. Thanks, Anshu, for that. But meanwhile, oil prices have dropped by around $2 a barrel today. This at the back of indications that the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, commonly known as OPEC, along with Russia, were considering easing supply curbs later this year. However, the slump in oil prices globally is yet to deflect in fuel prices back home. You can see the global oil prices on your screen. Brent at that $76 per barrel mark, and WTI Amex down by about 3.3%. Now, back home, petrol and diesel prices have been increased for the 12th straight day. In fact, senior government officials tell CNBC TV18 that there is no easy solution to dousing the fuel fire. We learned that the government is still working on its plan to provide relief to consumers. Sapna Das is here with exclusive details. Sapna, what is the latest that you're picking up with respect to what the government is planning to do, and by when can they execute this?
So after 5 days of almost consecutive price revisions upwards in terms of petroleum and diesel prices in the domestic market, what we understand is that, senior government officials are now saying that there is no easy solution to the oil price situation. And they are still waiting for some kind of a proposal or some kind of a view to be firmed up by Petroleum Ministry. Clarity will emerge only then that actually what are the options on the table for the government. Having said that, despite the somewhat softening of the global price, at the moment in the global markets of crude, the fact remains that a 6 to 12 month time frame will have to be taken by the government, because there could be price volatility and that may need to be contained or addressed at some point in time. So having said that, the options that so far that have been spoken about, the contribution of upstream and downstream companies, probably, well, even that may not be easy, because any kind of a decision taken on that front will affect the company's ability to pay dividends to the exchequer, to the central government, and also their ability in terms of ramping up their capex. That will take a direct hit. Anything that the government does in terms of duties, of course, that will impact the fisc directly. So no easy solutions here, still awaiting some kind of a proposal from the Petroleum Ministry. Also, let's keep in mind what is happening globally in terms of the price trend. If that continues for some time, for all you know, the government may actually decide not to take any measures. And if that happens, then for all you know, the retail prices where they've reached right now may actually stabilize at that level, possibly not come down immediately, because OMCs will take some time to take a call again, and because those prices can only come down now if the government goes ahead with an excise duty cut. And as I've just mentioned, there is nothing on the table so far. These are just options being spoken about. The proposal has yet to concretize.
Well, that's the point up now. When exactly will that proposal go through? But thanks for taking us through those critical details. Now, here's another big story. Market regulator SEBI has issued a notice to ICICI Bank in the Videocon loan case. The regulator's notice is based on the information provided by the bank and its MD and CEO on dealings between the bank and Videocon Group. Ritu Singh, who tracks this space very closely, is here with the details. Ritu, take us through the contents of the exact notice.
Has said that capital market regulator SEBI has started proceedings against the bank for non-disclosure of information on the alleged ICICI Bank and Videocon loan nexus. It said that it received a notice from SEBI on the 24th of May, which requires responses from the bank and its MD and CEO Chanda Kochar. In the notice, SEBI has asked for replies on alleged non-compliance with respect to listing agreements, also non-compliance with respect to SEBI disclosure regulations. The notice has been issued by SEBI on the basis of information that was shared by ICICI Bank in this Videocon case. In fact, the bank goes on to say that the MD and CEO has been asked for information with respect to dealings in the Videocon Group and New Power Bank, is both as well. The bank also said that it will be making appropriate responses to SEBI in due course.
Okay, fair enough. So that response is going to be awaited, Ritu. Thanks for that. Now, here's the latest from another developing story, and this is around the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. We told you on Wednesday that the Union Cabinet amended the IBC via the ordinance route, providing relief for aggrieved home buyers and MSMEs. Today, Bankruptcy Board Chairman MS Sahu said that the resolution process currently underway is not making optimal use of the IBC in itself. Value is being maximized for a set of stakeholders and not for the lender. He added that if the objective was just to discover a price and get big value, they could have actually gone to the stock market.
Today's COC is a kind of custodian position, trustee position. So it has a little higher responsibility to look after the interests of all stakeholders. Objective is that we work in unison to resolve the insolvency through a process that does not have, it's not an adversarial process. In fact, in one of the NCLT told in one of the judgments that there are no petitioner, no respondent, no plaintiff, no defendant. In contrast to recovery, which is an adversarial process. So the objective of COC is to generate competitive resolution plan and approve that plan, which maximizes the value of everybody, in contrast to recovery, which maximizes the value of only one set of people.
Okay, that is MS Sahu clarifying on some critical points. But let's move on to today's big earnings. Public sector lender Bank of Baroda posted disappointing earnings in the fourth quarter. This is in fact the first time in 2 years that the bank registered a loss. Bank of Baroda's net loss widened to over 3,000 crore rupees versus expectations of a loss of over 120 crore rupees. Asset quality also deteriorated with gross NPAs at over 12% and net NPAs at around 5.5%. Quarterly slippages is the highest in 9 quarters. Bank of Baroda's gross slippages surpassed 12,600 crore rupees in the fourth quarter. So that's as far as the big earnings is concerned. There were a clutch of earnings as well, but Bank of Baroda seemed to be the worst. The Karnataka government has proven its majority on the floor of the state assembly. The floor test was presided over by the new Karnataka speaker. Six-time Congress MLA K.R. Ramesh Kumar. Kumar was elected after the BJP withdrew S. Suresh Kumar's candidature for that post. BJP legislators staged a walkout before the voting was supposed to take place, and soon after that, the H.D. Kumaraswamy government won the floor test through a voice vote.
Whatever promises I have given to the citizen of Karnataka, I will going to fulfill all my promises which I have made during the time of election.
We will not have any differences. We'll sort of anything is there. We'll sit and we'll settle. Our party.
How long will it take? Because it seems to be taking a long time.
The next 2-3 days it will be sorted out.
We don't want to participate in the confidence motion of this unholy alliance. The people of Karnataka have disregarded them. In the light of this unholy alliance, we are protesting in this assembly session by a walkout.
And of course, the next thing to watch out would be to get the exact details of the portfolios of the ministers. Moving on to the other big story from South, life in Tuticorin is gradually limping back to normalcy. Remember, earlier this week, protests demanding the closure of Sterlite Copper's smelter plant escalated into a full-blown battle with the state police, prompting the latter to open fire. 13 people lost their lives in the ensuing violence. Earlier in the day, Kanimoi was detained in Egmore after DMK-led opposition staged a protest against the police firing during the anti-Sterlite protest. In addition, VCK leader Thiruma Valavan has been detained. A PIL seeking a Supreme Court monitored CBI probe into the deaths of the agitators during the anti-Sterlite rally has been filed already. The Apex Court will hear the matter on Monday, but remember, internet services remain suspended in Tuticorin as we speak. Section 144 is in force as well. My colleague Jude Sanet has been reporting from ground zero. He filed this report earlier.
Slowly but surely, Tuticorin has begun creeping back to normalcy. On day 4 of the anti-Sterlite agitation, there have been no fresh instances of violence, even as police personnel have been deployed by the hundreds to keep a close eye on what continues to remain a sensitive situation.
As per my yesterday's statement, today the situation is very, very peaceful. Since morning we haven't seen any untoward incident and no law and order issues so far. First important thing is that all the essential services are back on track. Many of the shops are open. The milk, the vegetables, sales and everything started happening slowly.
While shops and other establishments continue to remain shut, vehicular movement here has resumed owing to no fresh violence. The local administration has confirmed the death of 13 protesters and said that nearly 102 people have been injured. In all, 98 vehicles were torched in the first 3 days of violence, which pegs the total loss number to 1.27 crore rupees.
Government is of the firm decision has already been taken not to run the plant or not to let the plant operate anymore. Okay. The Pollution Control Board's clearance has been very clear, categorical, saying that we don't want to plan to operate. Similarly, even we've gone one step ahead. We have cut down the electricity and we cut down the basic utilities onto the plant so that they don't do any other activity inside the plant. Okay. So government is very sure that the plant should not run.
But for the villagers who live in close proximity to Sterlite Copper, the fight isn't quite over. And that's because while the violence and agitation may have ended, their problems, they say, still remain.
We aren't able to live in peace. We are always worried that police might come and catch us anytime.
The police
My husband and I escaped the attacks at the protest, but he has been missing ever since.
சொல்லுங்கம்மா ரெண்டு குழந்தைக்கு வந்து ஹார்ட்ல பிரச்சனை இருக்கு பொறுக்க டைம்ல இருந்தேயா
ஆமா பிறக்கச்சலே நான் பிரசவம் பார்த்து இந்த ஊர்ல தான் நான்
Both my kids have holes in their heart since birth.
The doctor says that it is because of the water in the area.
நீங்க இருக்கிற ஏரியா சரியில்லை, சுவாசிக்கிற காற்றுனால தான், நீங்க குடிக்கிற தண்ணினால தான் அப்படினு சொல்லவும், அப்ப இதனால ஏன் குழந்தைகள் ரெண்டு கோடி பாதிக்கு போய் நான் டாக்டர் போய் இதே தான் ரீசன் சொல்றாங்க.
So while Tuticorin's 100-day-long protest may have ended as of now, the movement against Sterlite Copper, agitators say, will continue until the plant is sealed. In Tuticorin, this is Jude Sanath.
And Jude is still in Tuticorin and will be bringing us updates as and when things developed on the ground. But from the big national story to the big international story, former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein was arrested by New York City police on charges of rape and sex abuse today. This comes 7 months after the allegations of rape against Weinstein destroyed his career and set off the Me Too movement. CNBC's Contessa Brewer is here with the details of the proceedings today. Contessa, what happened today? What exactly transpired to Harvey actually surrendering?
We have been told that they will release the entire complaint detailing the allegations by these two separate women against Harvey Weinstein. So we're expecting that momentarily. We're also expecting to hear from his attorney, Ben Brafman. He was, when he went in, he turned around and said, I'll talk to you guys afterwards, and we've been alerted. So we'll be on the lookout for that as well. So what comes next here? Now, number one, the investigation still continues. The grand jury is still convened on allegations from other women and on the issue of financial payments that Harvey Weinstein allegedly made to women who had accused him over the years. So that continues. There are also inquiries in other jurisdictions, in Los Angeles, for instance, in London as well. And so we'll be looking to see whether they move forward on that. In the meantime, we know that 3 different sources familiar with this investigation say that there were these 2 different women. One of them was Lucia Evans, who are at the very foundation of this complaint, and the NYPD, along with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, had investigated this and said that they were pivotal because of their cooperation in bringing charges. But it was a long time coming. And remember that these dozens and dozens of allegations, while he was heading up Miramax and while he was at the head of his own company, that nothing had ever been done about it, that the District Attorney's Office, though women had allegedly brought their complaints against him in the past, they never filed charges. In this case, very different. Handcuffs today, fingerprinted, photographed. He'll have a mugshot, forced to fork over either $1 million cash or $10 million bond and to surrender his passport. So clearly, Carl, this is a big change for Harvey Weinstein and a real turning point in the Me Too movement.
Well, absolutely. This is a big development. Thanks, Contessa, for joining us with that. But with that, we will have to wrap up this edition of What's Hot. Thank you for watching. Up next, Robert Buckland of Citigroup gives us his outlook on the markets as well as the global economy. On our special show, London 9 in 30 minutes, we'll be back with the top news stories of the day with India Business Hour. Don't go anywhere.